Greeting and welcome to the Intensive Success Secrets. I am Nishant Sharma from Atlanta, Georgia. Please give warm welcome to our guest, Randye Kaye. Randye Kaye is the author, speaker, podcast host, and actress. Welcome, Randye.
Thank you, Nishant. Very nice to meet you.
Okay, same here. Let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Well, there are a lot of answers to that question because I do a lot of different things. I'll give you two answers. One is that I always knew from a very young age that I loved to act. I love the creative process of it. I love the collaboration of it. And starting as a young child is just the thing I always loved to do. The most recent thing that I've done that I felt the world needed me to do was to write a book about easier and more accessible ways to have happier moments throughout the day. And the moment that came to me was when I was on a speaking tour for another book I had written called Ben Behind His Voices. And I wrote that about 10 years ago. And that was a memoir about my family's experience with my son's mental illness, schizophrenia. And it's a lot for a family to go through. And as I was speaking to families and psychiatrists and patients about the experience, I always got the same question, which was, my gosh, how do you stay so positive? And so I began formulating the ways I do it. And eventually I created a program around it. And then people said, I wish I had a book. So I wrote one. And this book, Happier Made Simple, Choose Your Words, Change Your Life, I wrote in response to all those people who asked me that question and who said, I don't have time to meditate. It's why does happiness have to be so complicated? Tell me something to do in the moment to make my day go a little easier. And so that's why I wrote the book.
Great. What are the top 3 reasons why do people fail?
Why do people, I'm sorry, say that again.
What are the top 3 reasons why do people fail?
Why do they fail? Ooh. Number one is not being clear about what they want the end result to be. Number two would be not being realistic about how much work it takes to get to that end result. And number three, not willing to balance their life so that they have time and energy to do the work necessary to reach their goals.
Okay. What is your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
Oh my gosh, as an actor, I've had so many failures. Every job you try to get that you don't get, you wonder what you did wrong. I'd have to say, but it's hard for me to use the word failure, but I'll go with it for the purposes of the question. I'd have to say the greatest disappointment for me, there were two. One was the failure of my first marriage. And people will call that a failure. That's a personal choice. And the reason for the ending of that marriage was that my husband was an alcoholic. And eventually I just decided it was better to part ways. Some would call that a failure. I call that a choice. And I was left with 2 young children to support all on my own. What that taught me was strength. What it taught me about my own resilience, taught me about what I was capable of given more limitations in my life. And the second big change for me was when I had a full-time job as a radio broadcaster for 17 years with the same company. And I pretty much thought that's who I was. And when they made some changes in the way they wanted the station to sound and they didn't renew my contract, that was a really hard transition for me, to go from identifying myself as the girl that everybody knew who was on our local radio station to figuring out who else I was. Out of that grew a career as an author, a speaker, an audiobook narrator, and a more dedicated actress. So out of the ashes rises the phoenix.
Great. So what are your top 3 success secrets that other can model from you?
I would say number one is to know what success means to you. I think we live in a world where we're encouraged to dream big dreams. And the flashiest of those dreams might be, I want to live in a mansion, or I want to own a yacht, or I want to have a beautiful home, or I want to drive a BMW. And when people make vision boards, often they put material things on there. And I would say that material things or power things. I want to run a company. I want to be a star. I want to, and lesson number one would be that success is truly how you define it based on the big picture of your entire life. I know I spent a lot of my 20s wanting to be a TV and movie star, and I worked really hard at it. And I was getting some work, but I wasn't achieving that huge success that the world would see as, worthy of social media posting. But it was working. But I sat around a table with 2 people who had made it in the business and who were still struggling to stay successful. And they were miserable people. They were not happy. They were complaining about how the business stole their life away from them. They never had time to get married. They weren't good fathers to their children. And yet they weren't leaving the business. And I thought, I don't want ever to feel that way about my art. I want my art to be, I want it to help support my family, certainly, but I want it to be creative. I don't want to have to take jobs I don't like just to say I'm an actor. And I also want a life. I want someone to come home to. I want a family. I want a lot more than just what the world sees as front page news. And so I made a decision at that point to put my career on the back burner and allow myself to create artistically, but also know that what I really wanted, at least as much, if not more than that, was people to love, a purpose to live, and people to love me back. And so I took time to get married and have children. And so that, because every actor knows, when the curtain goes down, if you don't have something to go home to, at least for me, it would have been an empty life, and I didn't want an empty life. So I'd say secret number one is to definitely know what success means to you, and don't just look at job, and don't just look at money. Look at family, look at purpose, look at love, look at the things you want your life to stand for when it's over and you've left a legacy. So that would be secret number one. Secret number two would be, and I mentioned it before, be aware of what you have to do in order to get what you think you want. So I have written 2 full-length books. And in both cases, I never planned to be a writer, but I just felt that, as many writers will tell you, the book idea came to me and it had to be written. And I was the vehicle through which it got written. And I know that writing consumes your life for a while. I don't want to live a full-time writer's life. I'm too social for that. I like to be around people. I like to be on stage. I like to be at parties. I like to meet people in the supermarket. And so the solitary life of a writer wasn't for me. But when the ideas came to me, I knew I was the person to write it. And so I did write it. But I knew the price I would pay, and I don't like the word price. I knew that the package of being a writer comes with some solitary time, a lot of patience to wait for somebody to want to publish your book. And I was willing to embrace the whole package of what it meant to be a writer for those periods in my life. So the second lesson is be aware of what your road to success entails, because there's things you're going to have to do to make those things come true. And the third secret I would say is open yourself up to collaboration with other people. It's easy to say I'm a self-made man or I'm a self-made woman, but nobody really is. We are on this earth together, to be together, to help each other, to share our gifts with each other. And everything I've ever done, I've done it better in collaboration with another human being, including this podcast, because you're asking me questions I've never really had to think about before. So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you. So what motivates you within?
What motivates me within? Well, I spent some time as an improv actor. I think you're aware of improvisational acting. And part of that is being aware that you want to be open to the contributions of others and say yes to other people, and then add your own creativity. So what motivates me is, I said, collaboration with other people. What also motivates me, and I got this from improv as well, is that we create boundaries in our lives, and sometimes life creates boundaries for us. The family we're born into, the country we grow up in, the economic circumstances we have, the children that we choose to support, the people we love who may get ill and we need to take care of them. And rather than having a bad feeling about those limitations, I chose to embrace them and befriend my limitations, because every time there's been some limitation in my life, it has made me more creative. So believe it or not, sometimes limitation motivates you. I have a presentation coming up today at 3, and I have another one coming up Thursday. And because they are soon, that's very motivating for me to get the work done to make them as good as possible. So I'm motivated by boundaries and deadlines. I'm motivated by the sense of legacy, by what service am I giving to the world? What can I give to the world here while I'm alive, some of which I hope will remain when I'm no longer here. And so that is in the form of the love I give to everybody in my life, because I think love is what we leave behind. And the work that I do, including the speeches I make, or the podcasts that I host, or the books that I've written. So my legacy, service, and limitations are 3 things that motivate me.
Okay, great. So what's your company motto?
I would say it is happier. It's very much in line with my book, Happier Made Simple, which is choose your words to change your life. I firmly believe that what matters to us, what happens to us matters, but what we tell ourselves it means matters even more. So like anybody, I have had limitations in my life, including being abandoned by my first husband, including the financial task of supporting 2 children alone, including a time I woke up from surgery to find that my left leg was paralyzed for a while, including, there's all kinds of things that happen. And instead of letting it get me down, I took time to absorb the change, which is human. We have to. Transitions require some attention. But after that, it became a choice. Am I going to feel bad about this, or am I going to tell myself the words that will make this easier for me? Things like, when my leg was, we weren't sure if it was going to get better. I called it my healing leg. I called it my functioning leg and my healing leg instead of my good leg and my bad leg. So the words we use make a big difference. In my book, I talk about 7 core phrases that help me in almost every situation. If I tell myself things like, okay, Randye, be here now. Just mindfulness. It's across every religion and every culture and every self-help thing. But that's a phrase that triggers and reminds me very gently to just bring my mind back to the moment and appreciate the moment. Things like it is what it is, accepting the reality of what my life is today. It's raining. Well, it is what it is. I can waste time going, I wish the sun was out, or I could say, wow, rain, this is so nice. I get to stay inside and enjoy cocooning in my own home. So the words we tell ourselves make a big difference. And I would say that choose your words to change your life would be the motto of my book, certainly.
So, who is your ideal client?
My ideal client, well, I would be a reader or a listener to my presentations. So it would be anybody who finds that the concept of happiness is too complicated. They've bought a million self-help books and they can't read them because it's just too much theory. They know they should be doing certain things, but they're disappointed in themselves because they gave up the gratitude lists. They don't like yoga. They can't meditate. So my ideal client is someone who just wants a simpler, more actionable method of making each day have better, happier moments so that they have the energy to serve the world better, make their own days better, and enjoy what they have.
Okay. So, how do you start your day?
I get up, and even though feng shui says that your bed should face the door, I like my bed facing the window because I see the sunrise. So I get up and I'm grateful for the sunrise. It's always beautiful, and grateful for a good night's sleep. And I get out of bed and I go downstairs in my pajamas, and my husband has usually made coffee. And I brush my teeth, obviously, and wash my face and do all those things. And most days, although I'm not perfect at this, I start it with 10 minutes of no digital anything. 10 minutes of just drink my coffee, go outside and pick up the paper from the bottom of the driveway. I find if I start my days with 10 analog minutes, 10 minutes of not checking my cell phone, not checking my iPad, not looking at Facebook, that it starts my day off much, much better, like reading the actual newspaper, just for 10 minutes, because we all need social media for our businesses. We know that. But that's how I like to start my day. I have a cup of coffee, and then I go upstairs and get dressed. And I say to myself, I wonder how this day is going to unfold. And I also have a crystal hanging in one of my windows. And if it's sunny, it sends rainbows all throughout my kitchen and my dining room. And I always take a moment to appreciate those rainbows because they're so beautiful. And it reminds me of the beauty in the world. And that's how I start my day. How do you start your day?
I will tell you later.
Okay.
Okay. So, what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for the fact that I have a flexible enough schedule that even though I knew I was going to be talking to you at noon my time, when my daughter needed my help with her 3 young children, I said, bring them over. So I between 9 and 10, I had a presentation and another Zoom meeting, but between 10:30 and noon, I was playing trains with a 4-year-old. I was coloring with a 6-year-old and talking with a 3.5-year-old. And that is a beautiful way to start your day. I'm very grateful for my grandchildren. I'm grateful for the fact that my daughter is in such a good marriage with such a beautiful family. I am grateful that my book got another 5-star rating on Amazon. I'm grateful for opportunities that pop up out of nowhere like this with you today. And I'm grateful that my son, who has a serious illness, is doing very well today.
Okay. So how young are you?
I am 69 and a half years young.
Okay. You are not 69-year young. You are 18-year young with 51-year experience.
Okay. One of my passions is aging proudly. I love to embrace the idea that I'm getting older and that's good. That's good. The American concept of, oh, we have to hide your age and be coy about your age, and you have to look younger than your age or you're not worthy. I fight that in my head. My grandchildren are like, Grandma, you have wrinkles. And I'm like, yes, and I'm going to have more. And if I'm lucky, I'll live to be 100. I'm going to have a lot of wrinkles. So learn to love them. And I really am passionate about aging proudly. I want to be as healthy as I can be, but I'm not 20. I'm not 30. I was 30 and I was 20 and I lived those very well. Thank you. I think people with age should be respected and looked up to and asked questions. I wish I had asked my grandparents questions before they left. That I could have learned a lot from them.
So how do you overcome challenges life throws at you?
Well, the first thing I do is, if it is a really difficult challenge and a shock, I allow myself the space to be sad or mad about it for a while. When I woke up from a surgery to find that my left leg was paralyzed, you don't immediately go to, oh, well, I'll be fine. Like, your body needs time, your mind needs time to absorb things that are challenges. And I've learned not to judge my own emotions, especially when things just happen. Everybody marveled at how well I got through that year. I went through 3 different leg braces, and to this day, I can't walk or skip or tap dance, but I can walk. Sorry, I can't run or skip or hop on that leg, but I can walk and I can get down on the floor and play with my grandchildren, and I am grateful for that every second. But I would not ever set that expectation that it was an easy time. I cried a few tears. It's very hard to lose the ability to do something. This came a year after I'd broken my wrist and could only work with one hand. But eventually, once you've absorbed what has happened and you get to a place of, okay, this did happen, I can't wish it away, then the choice begins. And that's when the words you use make a big difference. So the things that I say to myself to help me get out of it is, first of all, being grateful for what I can do instead of dwelling on what I can't do. That is a huge thing. So appreciation, acceptance that it happened. It doesn't mean you have to like it. I don't like the fact that the doctor accidentally broke the nerve during surgery. I don't like it, but it did happen and I can't change it. And so my choice is to change my attitude toward it. So that is resilience. Another thing that really helps me a lot is replaying in my head how many challenges I've already come through and knowing that I'll do this one too. So the 7th core phrase in my book, everything spells out an acronym, BREATHE, and the last E is for esteem. And when I'm tempted to worry about something, there's useful worry. Whereas if, like, for instance, if you're worried that your house will burn down, well, that can be useful if it gets you to blow the candles out or not smoke in bed, or, useful worry will lead you to an action. Unuseful worry will lead you only to stress. So if you've done everything you can to keep your home protected, then there's nothing more you can do. Occasionally, we still stress about things over which we have no control. And we stress over things that may never happen. Like, oh, what if it rains on my wedding day? Well, you can't do what you can. But the phrase that gets me through is, whatever happens, I'll handle it somehow. I always have, and I always will. I have thrived through the abandonment of a spouse, partial paralysis of my body, finding out 2 years ago that my family was not what I thought it was when DNA showed me that the father that raised me is not my biological father. Like, life throws things at us. And so I just remind myself, whatever happens, I will handle it somehow. I may need help from other people, but that I can handle it. And the T in breathe is for trust, just kind of trusting that I'm not in charge of the world. I don't know who's in charge of the world, but it's not me. I'm just in charge of me. And my job is to give as much love as I can and to do good work and to work hard. But something else is in charge of the world, and I don't pretend to understand it. And I think that's what all religions try to do, is to understand who's in charge of the world and what our part of it is. But I do trust that all will somehow be well, that I can't see the big picture of the world because I'm not in charge of it, but that we help each other. And in the big picture, all will somehow be well, just maybe not the way we pictured it would be. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is your living mentor and what is the impact?
My living mentor? I don't have one in particular, but as I said, I really believe in the magic of collaboration. And everything that I've gotten done, I have gotten done better in partnership,
Okay.
even if they're temporary. So the literary agent who believed in me and got my first book published was a mentor. Other authors who chose to self-publish their second book were mentors. A person I know who has a wonderful TEDx talk with 3 million views and spent some time talking to me about his process, he's a mentor. There are mentors everywhere. There are people who have done what we want to do. And if we can listen to them and open ourselves up to them and partner with them, if they're willing, that makes everybody's lives richer. On the other hand, I like to be a mentor to other people. And a lot of the time I'm not even aware. Like, they will say to me, "Oh, I did that thing you told me." And I don't even remember giving advice. So we are all mentors to each other all the time.
Yes, right. So why being impactful is more important to you?
I think again about legacy and why we're here and why we're not here alone. I think we all have an energy that we share with each other in groups. It's a little hard on Zoom, but I think it's still there on Zoom. I miss in-person gatherings. I think it's a little easier to feel that energy in person, but it is what it is. And we're all doing the best we can with this pandemic and taking advantage of geographical distance. And it's what a privilege to be able to do this. Would I have met you otherwise? Probably not. So I do believe that energy shared is the reason we're here. And we're here to leave behind our work, our service, and our love. And if we can affect the world by thinking that way, there's an exercise that Stephen Covey talks about in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where you just imagine what you would like said at your funeral. And are you living your life in that way? So I try to live my life in a way that will leave behind the love I feel, the love I share, and the work I do and the example I set.
Okay. So what do you want to remember for?
I would like to be remembered for being a good friend, a good mother, a good grandmother, for being a woman who dared to do things and set an example for other people, like breaking some barriers in radio, like giving good performances in theater, sharing my art, writing 2 books, creating 2 podcasts that hopefully are, and I have heard that they are making a difference to other people. I'd like to be remembered for making a difference. And a lot of what I do is also, the H in my acronym in Breathe is for humor, because I think that that is one of the most human. I mean, just realized like the first 3 letters are the same too, human and humor. So one of the most human things we can do is share a laugh. And that's a big part of what I do. I'm not a comedian because it's too much pressure, but I loved being on the radio and morning radio. I love when I make a speech and what I say resonates with the audience and they laugh. I love doing comedy, or I love doing tragedy plays with comedy in them. If you can make people laugh, not make them, but share a laugh, that is one of the most genuine human moments that we can share together. So in my work, even though it's serious, if we can find the funny together and never laughing at somebody, but laughing with somebody is a huge part. And if that's part of the message I get to leave behind, then that would make me very happy. Humor is a huge part of what I do. I think it just makes everything better when it's appropriate.
Okay. So what would you like to say about your guest experience on this show?
I think your questions have been very thought-provoking and very genuine. And I very much enjoyed thinking about the answers because all of it came from here. I didn't have anything planned. And I think you're a lovely host and I appreciate the opportunity.
So what's your final word?
My final word is share who you are, share it with love, take some risks, and know that you have gifts that you can share with the world. Starting with those maybe that are closest to you, because we all have to sweep our own little corner of the world and do the best we can, but let that love reach beyond to people you may not have yet met.
Okay. So thanks for sharing your wisdom with us, Randy. On the behalf of our community and team, we really appreciate your effort. Until the next time, all good wishes to you.
And the same to you. Thank you so much.